Hello, you noble people. My name is The Noble, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts and feelings on Deltarune Chapter 5 and talking about my bingo board, seeing what I got wrong, what I got right. But before we hop into that, I do want to kind of talk about some of the discourse around this chapter because some people are outright just kind of idiots when it comes to talking about this chapter, and I kind of want to talk about it. Now, I don't want to come off as being rude to others people's opinions on this chapter. If you love this chapter, fine. If you hate this chapter, fine. And you could have valid reasons. The problem is that media literacy is kind of a big thing. Basically, every post I see talking and having criticism on this chapter, it isn't constructive criticism, and it's just like they didn't play the same game. And even people that I was following or subscribed to, like a song remixer was just like, yeah, these songs are really bad and they don't have any cohesion. And I'm like, I don't really think that, but okay. And then they just start like going on a rant about how this thing is like complete, there's like literally no lore. And then people are like, what about this? And they're like, that doesn't count. Like, what do you mean that doesn't count? You can't say like I get not liking a chapter. You can say you don't like this chapter, but for you to try and be like, it's filler, there's nothing in there, I'm sorry, I don't respect that opinion. I know I said I would try to respect I'm going to try and respect your opinion on what you have, but if you don't provide like your actual side of the argument and don't try and like give constructive stuff, there is things in this chapter that I do not like, which I'll talk about, but I'm going to give constructive criticism. I'm not just going to lie and be like, yeah, the plot doesn't continue. What do you mean the plot doesn't continue? Like 17 million different plot advancing story beats happen in this chapter. What are you talking about? I just had to briefly discuss that because it was driving me crazy, the amount of people I was seeing that didn't like this chapter. This chapter is supposed to be a tonal shift from 4, and a great example, I don't know, me personally, if this is my favorite chapter yet. 4 is very close to my heart because of how 4 handled some stuff and just how big the spectacle of 4 was. But there's a high chance that on a replay, I will like chapter 5 more. It'll just take a little bit of time for me to figure out what I want to do or how I view this when it comes down to chapter 5. There's some aspects where I think it does better than chapter 4, but I think chapter 4 can do it better. But that could just be me, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I just wanted to get that brief thing out of the way at the beginning of the video. Now let's go into my actual big thoughts and feelings on this chapter as a whole. First up, this is an S tier chapter in my opinion. Whether this is higher than chapter 4 for me or not, it is either chapter 5 in the top of the tier list and then chapter 4, or chapter 4 is above chapter 5. They're both an S tier. I would then say chapter 3 and 2 are both in A tier, and then I would say B tier would be chapter 1. While I do love chapter 1 and it is a good starting point, it has the less amount of interesting stuff going on because it's like the tutorial of what is going on. It has some kind of more normal-esque RPG gameplay. It doesn't really have too many unique things going on, and like there's a reason why the theories of chapter 1 were kind of just like why did Kara make me do this and stuff like that. They were very watered down because we really didn't have too many plot threads going on, and that only really got bumped up with chapter 1 and 2, and then obviously chapter 3 and 4, and then the chapters that are going to be, or theories that are going to be coming from chapter 5 are going to be insane. But I definitely love this chapter. The characters introduced in this chapter not only are very interesting and creative, the dichotomy between Flowery and Azriel was something that I was not expecting, because a lot of us going into this kind of thought, especially from that one prophecy image that it was going to be the vast garden of pink and gold is burned down by an inferno of jealousy. We thought that was going to be Asgore. It wasn't Asgore, and it was instead Rouse. That's an interesting subversion of expectations of how stuff happens in this chapter. And Asgore really wasn't the main boss of it. It was all of the souls or all of the different flowers. The flower characters themselves are such an interesting subversion of what you would think they would be. The kind of idea they have is it's kind of a warped idea of what their soul trait is supposed to be. Patience is a little child who has no patience. The bravery soul is a mouse and is kind of like more like weak and not as brave, but can become brave. Obviously, you have Justice not really understanding justice and being kind of woody stuff. It's just so amazing what they do, what Toby does with the story and stuff with this. The Light World segment is amazing. I love Susie and Noelle, and the Rudy stuff is kind of insane to me. The music is again top notch. I will say some of the tracks that I do love in this. In the soundtrack, there's around 40 soundtracks. Some of them are more atmospheric, but I will say the ones that are not atmospheric are better. I would say with Chapter 4, my least favorite soundtracks of each chapter is still Chapter 3. Chapter 3, the only really fully big ones to me were TV Time, TV World, Black Knife, and then I really liked the Sword Route soundtrack. Other than that, I didn't really care too much about the other soundtracks. But even with the atmospheric music in this chapter, this had an amazing, the Garden of Hopes and Dreams, the festival music. Flower Man is by far the best boss theme. I don't care what you say. The fact that a main boss theme has lyrics, I'm going to 100% download mods so that when I replay this, I can have Flowery sing this as I battle him. It's insane. The secret boss, super fun subversion of expectations. It doesn't, one of the things that people were criticizing was that, oh, it's not a pre-established character. What are you talking about? One, it is a pre-established character. It's Mew Mew. Second, this doesn't break anything. If anything, you should be complaining about the Knight breaking the subversion of expectations when it comes down to how these chapters are supposed to work, because the Knight's not the secret boss. Eram is, or the Shadow Mental is, and the Shadow Crystal boss is the Knight. But it's just so fascinating. Not only is this by far the longest secret boss fight, but I would say it is the hardest. I struggled with this fight a lot more than I did the Knight. I only died, I think 20 times with the Knight. And the Knight is purposely designed to one-shot you. I died more. I left in some of a couple of my deaths in my huge series play, which you can watch. But I cut a lot of my deaths out because at one point I had to take my headphones off and just lock in to be able to play it. I absolutely adored that. The actual realization that we're going to be able to finally bring a Shadow Crystal boss to our main place is really cool. I love that. The fight at the end with Flowery and the Knight, the Asgore getting taken, the realization that Susie's home, what she calls home, is the Dark World, is at the same time super sweet and also super distressing, because she'll be left with nothing if we do have to close that fountain in Castletown. This is an amazing chapter. I don't know how, Rousey's progression in this, with him doing fire spells, I don't know how you can say this chapter is bad. I even talked about the gameplay aspects. The new gameplay aspects with the Smash Brothers platforming was insane. I I absolutely love this chapter, and I can't picture me never liking a chapter. If I don't like a chapter, you know that Toby's kind of dropped the ball on that, because I don't think he can do something bad in a game, because it's always amazing. But now that you got my thoughts out of the way, let's hop into my bingo board. Oh, actually, I didn't talk about the weird route. Weird route, you already know the weird route's crazy. I don't really know how to talk about the weird route. Especially in this video, I recommend checking out my weird route video, because I kind of explained my thoughts on that in that video, but I can't really say anything else that would add on to it that I don't say in the other video. All I other know is that it's gonna be crazy when we get to chapter 7 for the weird route. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, let's go into my bingo board and see what I did right and see what I did wrong. Okay, so I did okay. I mean, I wasn't really expecting... I'm gonna be honest, the whole reason I do a bingo board is to see how wrong I can be. Because this is all the stuff we're expecting, and then we have a huge subversion of expectations. We got another Rousey speech, kind of, not only with the speech that he does talking about the actual menus, which is actually really weird. The fact that the menus actually like exist, which is, that's a whole can of worms that people can dive into theories with. But also just speeches overall with him talking about Flowery and everything. We do see Friend. I didn't get it personally, but we do have Friend appear in one of the segments when you're in the kind of like Smash Brothers platforming stage. If you actually go out of and jump like off to the side and try and act with something in the air, a actually red version of Friend will appear for a brief moment, and it will actually deal a calculated amount of damage based on like items and current stats. So you always brings you and everyone in the party down to exactly 1 HP, which is insane to me. Friend Inside Me reference I counted because literally we got a Friend Inside Me character. The yellow is just a friend, it's just Woody. So, I mean, yes. And also they do Woody references in the kind of like cafe where you can have them interact. If you have orange and yellow interact, orange will take a hat and be like, oh, look, I'm yellow, howdy, 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 like they do in Toy Story. So yeah, I have a question mark on Rudy dies. I don't think Rudy's dead. He did say he fell down, but if in the weird route, he's actually not fallen down yet. He's just kind of like winded, like sitting near the ladders. So I don't actually fully know. We got more divorce lore with Asgore and Toriel, more or less just talking about Asgore's kind of like stuff. We got more death lore drop with Burger Pants talking about being in a band, which we kind of expected, but we got more stuff with Desriel, so big for Desriel stuff. Obviously, we got the takes place in the Flower King Freedom motif. Obviously, funny enough, the Trash Gang with like Newbert and stuff, they have the Freedom motif for some reason, which is really funny. But it's funny to think that Super Saiyan Newbert has the Freedom motif. And then also I put Flowey fight because we did have a Flowery fight at the end of this game. But yeah, I very much enjoyed this chapter. Let me know your thoughts on this chapter. I can't wait, and I'm going to be honest, I was perfectly fine for waiting like another 2 years for us to get chapter 6. But the fact that, because I thought we weren't gonna get the new chapter yet because Toby didn't put out the ending. That's because they don't have a set internal release date, like a set deadline they have to be done by. In the newsletter, not only says that people might be moving on to chapter 7, but in the Steam page, he outright says, oh yeah, people might be moving on to, the release date is expected to be 2027. We might get chapter 6 next year. It might be a yearly occurrence that every summer we get Deltarune, which is crazy to me, but I cannot wait for chapter 6. The weird route's going to be insane in chapter 7, or sorry, aborted weird route's going to be insane in chapter 6. I'm going to have to try and do an aborted weird route playthrough and see how that would work. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay noble. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.